Are y'all ready to rank your wide receivers in the AFC South?
Let's do it.
All right, Taylor, I'll start with you. Who's your 10th guy?
My worst guy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's still top 10 in the AFC South, so that's
my
terrible.
bottom at the 10.
Because you figure you have a top 3 wide receiver, right, for each team. So 3 times 4.
We could have just gone through, but that I feel like would have got messy because we also don't know everybody who's making all of the teams yet. So I figured if we kept 10, those 10 are going to be playing this season no matter what.
Yeah.
So my number 10, I honestly was avoiding putting rookies on here.
Okay.
Because we haven't seen them yet. But because of my high hopes and because of the role I think he will have on the offense, my number 10 is Brian Thomas Jr.
Okay, I can understand that. Mia?
Same.
Oh, look
yes,
at that.
actually same. Literally same. I thought about putting another rookie here, but
AD.
Yeah, that's who I have.
Yeah. Oh, is it?
I have AD Mitchell.
I went back and forth, but I put BTJ.
Ultimately, I'm curious to see because I think AD Mitchell truly akin to the Florida Gators, who I believe either start the season 5-0 or start the season 1-4. AD Mitchell can, in my book, only go one of 2 ways. Either this is going to work out great, or those rumors we heard about undisciplined, not taking his medicine.
And we'll see that quickly.
Right. Yeah. We will know instantly. Yeah. And we also will know instantly whether or not Shane Steichen is able to incorporate him into that offense that so heavily relied on Josh Downs in the slot last year.
All right, number 9.
So your 10 is AD.
Yeah, I've got AD Mitchell. You guys have Brian Thomas Jr.
Yes. So
I'm going to have BTJ higher than that.
Yes. So my number 9 is Tyler Boyd. I think that Tyler Boyd has been one of the receivers who has been never absolutely phenomenal, but he's also been a wide receiver 3 behind Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. So he's been just truly that full-on number 3 wide receiver in addition to the tight ends they've had too. But he's always been consistent. He's always had multiple touchdowns. He's always been in that 6, 7, 800-yard range. He's been able to – he doesn't drop a lot of passes. He has 70-plus catch percentage. So he's always that guy that's reliable. But just because he's never hit that 900,000 mark to me, he's a little lower, but he's still 9 on my list.
Mia?
I'm actually going to call upon an old friend. I'm going to put Calvin Ridley.
I have him too.
At number 9.
Yep.
As much as we have maligned him in this town since his departure, the man did have 1,000 yards last year, over 1,000 yards, after missing almost 2 years of football. And I don't know if it's going to work out in Tennessee. I don't know if Will Levis is the guy up in Nash Vegas. But I do know that without really being in the weeds of a playbook, Calvin Ridley had 1,000 yards last year. So give me him at number 9.
Yeah, I was debating whether he would even make my top 10 just because, of all the issues, even though he did, like you said, have over 1,000 yards. But now he's going to a different system. He had trouble in this system. Now he has to learn another system. He's going to a situation where the quarterback isn't stellar, in my opinion. And so that does, I think, hurt a receiver. All right, Taylor, your 8th guy.
So my number 8 is Tank Dell.
Okay.
For Tank, I think that when you were talking about the Houston offense and what they were able to do last season, it was really fun to watch. I think that Tank, I still need to probably see a little bit more and see what he looks like now with a Stephon Diggs added to this offense, obviously. But 700 yards, 7 touchdowns. He was one of those guys that he wasn't the guy, but he was somebody that in Houston, C.J. Stroud was really able to use, and especially in certain important situations. I feel like there were a lot of moments where Tank was that guy. He also was an actual tank in certain situations also, where you're like, he was just running over guys, and it's kind of fun to see that type of wide receiver too. So yeah, I have him behind that.
I have him at 8 as well. We've been matching a lot here. Mia, who you have at 8?
I have Josh Downs at number 8. I mentioned how great his rookie campaign with the Indianapolis Colts was. I think a big part of his 68-catch, 771-yard campaign was the fact that Gardner Minshew was the quarterback. Gardner Minshew, of course, loves a good tight end, loves a good slot receiver. I'm curious with this offense now being shifted and curtailed to Anthony Richardson's skill set, if that will translate to more opportunities for Downs, or is he simply a safety valve?
All right. Who you have 7?
My next is Calvin.
Okay.
So I have been very vocal about I did not love Calvin Ridley here in Jacksonville, but as you mentioned, he still broke 1,000 yards, and that was with not knowing where he was a lot of the time. I do think that, yes, a new offense, but he also has now been playing for a year. Previous to being here, he hadn't touched a football or been or maybe probably touched a football, but in an NFL game, almost 2 years hadn't. So I do think there were some growing pains in that. I also do think we talk about the newness of just trying to get over some of the learning curves of a new offense. So I do think it'll be there a little bit, but I do think a year under his belt, not saying he's going to have like a 1,500 yard season. I don't think that. But I do still think we'll be able to see 1,000-yard Calvin Ridley, maybe a little over.
The guy I have 7th, Mia, I wonder if he'll even be on your list, DeAndre Hopkins.
Oh, he's on my list.
Oh, he is?
Yeah. He's
Okay.
higher than that.
Okay, I have him because he's aging, and I already talked about the quarterback situation there in Tennessee. I've got him at 7th.
I have Gabe Davis at 7. Want to light a fire, give him something to prove.
Yeah.
First year in this division.
I have Gabe at 7.
Yeah, I have him at 7, and I think that honestly part of why I have him at 7 is because he's not going to be the number 1 option. But we saw 2 years ago when Zay Jones was fully healthy and was the number 2 option, and he came close to 1,000 yards. It'll be curious to see if Gabe is able to do that in his first year in Duval.
Yeah, so Gabe is my 6 because Calvin was 7. So Gabe is 6 for me. But yeah, same reasons. I think that I've mentioned a lot of the numbers of what Gabe's good at, and those red zone targets are what I think is going to massively help this offense because I just feel like we haven't truly had that at least healthy. That's what we wanted Zay to be. And Zay was just never quite able to stay on the field long enough to be that consistently. And I think that Gabe Davis can. So yeah, he's 6 for me.
All right. Mia, who got 6?
At number 6, I have Michael Pittman Jr., a guy who so many were so high on when he first came out of USC. That includes our very own Dave Campo, who recruited him to USC. 1,000 yards again last season, 1,152 yards on 109 catches. Again, I'm very curious. Gardner, Anthony Richardson, different quarterbacks, different skill sets. Shane Steichen has proven between his time in Los Angeles, Philly, and now Indianapolis that he can create a game plan and create a structure around that quarterback skill set. But what does that mean for those pass catchers?
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So at number 6, I have Brian Thomas Jr. I know that that's very high for a rookie, but I have such high faith or such belief in him and faith in him. And being able to watch him the last 2 days, that has cemented it. And obviously, this is a guy who's coming into a system where he doesn't have to be the number 1 wide receiver. Yet I think that's what he'll turn out to be on this team, even though we know the connection between Trevor and Christian. All right, number 5.
Yeah, 5 for me. I have Michael Pittman at 5. I think that, he missed games this year and had 1,100 yards. And I personally do think that, I know there's very high expectations, but / question marks around Anthony Richardson. But I do think that if Anthony Richardson plays anywhere close to his ability, that this isn't going to drop off at all. So if Michael Pittman does play a full season, we're seeing 1,300 yards from Pittman. He was just shy of the 1,000 yard in 2022, so almost 3 straight seasons of 1,000+ yards. So yeah, he is 5 for me.
I have Tank Dell.
Okay.
At number 5. Maybe it's recency bias, maybe it's not, but he played just 11 games and had 709 yards, 7 touchdowns, and an average of 15.1 yards per catch of his 47 catches. A late third rounder out of the University of Houston, of course, a Florida native. I don't want to say that I have high hopes for him because obviously, needless to say, in this town, we're hoping the Texans and their high hopes don't come to fruition and they can't actually reach that level. But he is an explosive player. He is an exciting player. He is arguably one of the fastest wide receivers in this division, if nothing else.
And so you had Tank Dell and I
5.
have Nico Collins 5. And I think with a guy like CJ Stroud, the way that their offense is going to go. And so, spoiler alert, I think we'll all have some Texans high in our top 10.
Yeah.
But yeah, Nico over 1,200 yards last season, also 8 touchdowns. He's a really good, I'd say, number 2 receiver there in Houston.
For number 4, it's a Lifetime Achievement Award. I am giving the honor to DeAndre Hopkins.
Okay.
And while I certainly have another Lifetime Achievement Award to give out in this top 4, we already know that D-Hop is on the back end of his career.
Yeah.
The other person who's going to get the Lifetime Achievement Award and be in the top 4, we don't know. Very well still could be an elite wide receiver in the National Football League. But to D-Hop's credit, even with the abysmal quarterback situation as it was last year, is it Ryan Tannehill? Is it the rookie Will Levis? He still managed to go over 1,000 yards, 75 catches, and 7 touchdowns. What was most impressive for me was that 14.1 yards per catch average, especially given outside of Week 18 against the Jags, the lack of verticality in that offense.
All right, number 4, Taylor?
Yeah, 4 for me is Christian Kirk. I think that I love Christian Kirk. I'm a big Kirk fan. We saw what this offense was without Christian Kirk. He has 1,000-yard season, and I would like to see also 1 full season as a whole. I'd like to see him be able to be on the football field consistently throughout the year, which we've only seen once in 2022. So I do want to see that a little bit. I know guys like DeAndre Hopkins also has battled some injuries too. I do think that this could drastically change within 1 year when it comes to my rankings of wide receivers. But I do think right now, for me, Christian Kirk does enough to be that one of those top receivers in the AFC South, but he's not a top 3 for me.
I've got Michael Pittman, whom I know you already had on your list. He's basically, I think, the best receiver in Indianapolis, and that means he's the go-to guy, whether that was last year for Gardner Minshew or whether it'll be this year for Anthony Richardson, assuming that he can stay healthy. By the way, I've been thinking, this is a completely different subject, but the Colts should have done everything in their power to keep Gardner Minshew because AR has been hurt his entire career between college, certainly, and now the NFL. Like, you've got to keep him.
Lauren, come on. They have the greatest backup quarterback of all time, Joe Flacco, now backing Anthony up. So all is well.
Yeah, he's like my age. All right.
Yeah, we watched that last year, though, and he came on strong at the end of the year.
I mean, look, can lightning strike twice? Remains to be seen.
Like I said, if I was them, I would have kept Gardner because
definitely me
you
too.
know he fits your system. Shane Steichen did great things with him last year.
I mean, they shocked everybody. Nobody would have said they were going to
Almost
win
made the
9.
playoffs.
Yeah,
And in Philly. I mean, he helped Gardner win games in Philly when Jalen Hurts was hurt. Have either of you been keeping up with Hard Knocks, the offseason program with the Giants? Okay. It was
a little bit, but not much.
It was very funny watching the episode from this week last night in which they're discussing the backup quarterback market, and Joe Flacco was among the first names that they were like, oh, Flacco we could probably get for like $4 or $5 million. He played pretty well last year, and all I could think was, this man won a Super Bowl like 10 years ago. And I understand he is, in his 40s, and I get it, but it's just still so weird to live in a world in which, Joe Flacco, great backup quarterback.
All right. I think we left off number 3, top 3. Who you got?
Yeah, so my three is DeAndre Hopkins. I think until we do not see 1,000-yard DeAndre Hopkins, he's still going to be one of the best wide receivers in the league to me, despite age. I think that last year, going to Mia's point, with the kind of wildness that they had in Tennessee at quarterback and offensively in general, he still surpassed 1,000 yards. The 2 years before that, he was battling injury, and it was Kyler Murray injury and what the heck is going on in Arizona. And it wasn't his best 2 years. But beyond that, he's been a 12, 13, 1,400-yard receiver. And I think that I think we're still going to see that for 2-3 more seasons, in my opinion. And like I said, it's more so until I don't see it, it's there.
I have Nico Collins at number 3. Is that the highest of any of us?
For
yes,
Nico?
because I had him at 5.
No, I
5.
have Nico at 2.
Oh, you do? Okay. So I have Nico Collins at 3. The reason I won't put him in the top 2 is because, quite frankly, he was all but left for dead after 2 years in Houston. And part of that was the anemic quarterback play, different head coaches, different schemes, wasn't able to stay healthy. Just 33 catches his first year, 37 the next year, and then explodes for 80 catches and over 1,200 yards, 3 yards away from 1,300 yards, which was the most of any wide receiver in the AFC last year. The pause that I have, though, is, can he replicate that? Can he do that again, or is that his ceiling? I know he just got a mega extension in Houston. It's based off a 1-year sample size. And while it was a tremendous 1-year sample size and it was in just 15 games and you're banking on the play of C.J. Stroud taking another level and that helps him, I have reservations solely because he struggled at Michigan at times to stay healthy as well.
All right, at number 3, I've got the one, the only Christian Kirk. I think he showed his importance last year when the offense completely fell apart without him. We know he is determined because we read the story that Ty Dunn wrote. We also talked to Ty Dunn of golongtd.com. And I think his entire career, he has been the guy who has really been focused on being as close to Larry Fitzgerald as he possibly can be. Obviously, he was his mentor to begin things. And I think he can play everywhere on the football field as far as the receiver position goes. I don't mean he can play offensive line, but I think they can line him up anywhere as far as receiver. And I think I think he gets a little bit frustrated when people talk about the speed of the other 2 receivers. And I think he's like, y'all,
me too.
I'm also really fast. Yeah. I can play outside. And so I've got Christian Kirk at 3.
I have him at number 2.
Okay.
And I
debated at 2 or 3.
It's honestly, it's because look at what happened when he wasn't there. And I don't think there's a wide receiver who is as important to the offensive operation, for better or worse, in the division than Christian Kirk. And last year proved that. He will never have the name recognition that the person who I have at number 1 has.
Do we all have Stephon Diggs at number 1?
We all have Stephon Diggs at number 1, which was tough for me because if the argument for Christian Kirk to be number 2 in my rankings is that the offense struggles without him, you could make the argument that Buffalo's offense got better when there were less targets going towards Stephon Diggs last year. And like I said with D-Hop, this is a Lifetime Achievement Award. But at the same time, I don't know which Stephon Diggs we're going to get in Houston. Because if we get the one that we saw in his last year in Minnesota, or the first 2 years in Buffalo, first 3 years in Buffalo, there is no debate. He is the best wide receiver in the division. But if he's the guy we saw the last 5-6 games last year, part of that was he wasn't being targeted. Part of it was the offense was flowing just fine without him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my number 2 was Nico Collins. I just think that, to your point, Mia, where the beginning of his career, it was a mess. Like, we want to justify some of the things that happen here in Jacksonville. You've got to do the same for him when it comes to what was going on offensively, coaching-wise, quarterback-wise, weapons-wise surrounding him, offensive line-wise, everything else in Houston. And last year, when you see him actually have a quarterback who can get him the ball and a functional coach and a functional offense, he had the second highest missed tackle rate by wide receivers in the NFL. That was just behind Debo. It was Debo, him, and Zay Flowers. The rest were all running backs. He had one of the highest yards after catch rates in the NFL. He was just behind only Tyreek Hill in yards per route ran last year, and he caught over 50% of his contested catches. Kid can do everything. He's like a cheat code. I think we're going to be talking about him being a top wide receiver in the AFC in general in the next couple years. Unfortunately, it's in Houston, but I just think that's what he is. He's one of those guys that you just felt like when we talk about a guy being able to be everywhere, he was able to be everywhere. And I think that it wasn't a one-off wonder, in my opinion. This is a guy we're going to see just get better and better.
I've got Tank Dell at 2 because he only played in 11 games. He had over 700 yards and 7 touchdowns. Imagine if he had played in the final 6-7 games that Houston played. And so, like I said, we all have Stephon Diggs at number 1, but that goes to show me that we each had 3 Texans wide receivers in the top 10. Mia, you had 2 Jaguars in your top 10.
3. No, I had Gabe. And I had BTJ at 10.
Oh, you had, that's right. You had Brian Thomas
Gabe.
Jr. So you have 3 Jags, so that's good news. And then you and I, Taylor, only have 2.
No, I had 3.
Oh,
yeah,
Gabe,
2.
You didn't have Gabe. Yeah, that's what I thought.
No, I do have Gabe. I have Kirk and Gabe and BTJ, so I have 3.
Oh, okay. So I'm the only one who left off Gabe. I apologize, Gabe. I just couldn't get you on the top 10.
I have an update. An update to what we led the program with, ladies. Again, we love our friends at the Florida Times-Union. We love our friend Gary Smitter. Smitter is currently getting absolutely roasted online for their headline on Jacksonville.com that Trevor Lawrence isn't playing like a $275 million man, which, hey, listen, I'm pleasantly surprised because I anticipated this being tons of fans from other teams taking this and running with it. No, it's Jacksonville fans saying we are 2 days in, Gary. This is a little bit too hard, to which Gary said, I pointed that out in the second paragraph. Well, my guy, the headline suggests differently.
That's why it's called burying the lead.
Yeah.
If your lead is the fact that Trevor doesn't look like a $275 million man, that's what people are going to see.
People also reading that have to relax a little bit too, because he's not lying. We just spent the whole first segment saying that the offense doesn't look like it should be at this point. But let's preface it with saying that it's early in camp.
I thought Trevor and the offense looked really good yesterday. Right. So I guess I don't sit on the side of people should be panicking. And again, that Smitter's saying
I'm not panicking. Right. I'm not panicking. But again, and Taylor and I agreed that the photo that was chosen is hilarious.
I mean, that was it makes you should want to click that and read what he's saying. But the problem is people don't. They just read the title. And probably didn't make it to paragraph 2 where he was justifying, okay, but let me tell you this.
And I'll just tell you that my quick hits, the caption is, it's a chicken or the egg question. Did Trevor and the offense struggle, or is the defense that good? Mm-hmm. And additionally, like I said, the other sub-argument of that is Trevor wasn't overthrowing the ball. He wasn't throwing the ball to the wrong receiver and there's nobody there. It was just very clear that the wide receivers were running the routes they were assigned and they could not find separation from the defender who was man marking them.
Yeah, I'm excited about the secondary. I'll say that after watching the first 2 days in Ryan Nielsen's defense.
Hey, Mia here, and thanks so much for watching 1010XL Jaguars. For even more coverage of the Big Cats, be sure to subscribe to 1010XL Jaguars.